Hello, welcome to the session. We just allow everybody to enter. Just give everyone a moment to join the session. Welcome if you have, and we'll begin in just a moment. I can see people still joining. Welcome to those who are already here. Just allow a moment more before we begin. A few more people still coming.
Still early.
And then we'll kick off in just a moment, allowing everyone to come in. Right, I think we're there. Hello, welcome to today's session. I'm Rachel Reed, Director of Insight here at ETOA, and I am delighted to be joined once again by Hannah Babineau from our partners at Data Appeal. Hello, Hannah.
Good morning. How are you, Rachel?
I am very good, thank you. Warm welcome to you again. We today are going to be talking about the whole is greater, so building inclusive destinations. I mean, as we've discussed several times, destinations are really at the heart of what we do as a business, and we see more and more that when we think about long-term sustainability, that destination has got to work for all of the stakeholders. It's not just the visitors. It's the residents, it's the governments, it's the national countries, it's the actual destination itself. So there's a lot of moving parts on that. And, we've talked in the past about, the importance of collaboration and smart resource management. And particularly today, Hannah is going to talk about how you can use data to feed into all of this conversation. So really looking forward to what you have to say in a moment, Hannah. And just a little bit of housekeeping. We will send the presentation, and Hannah has a video as well. We'll send both of those out to you afterwards, usually about tomorrow, so the next day that'll be with you. It will also be on our Insight Hub, etoa.org/insight, if you want to look for it later. Please do feel free to ask questions using the Q&A facility. We should have time for those at the end as well. So with that, Hannah, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rachel, and happy to be back on an ETOA webinar. So today I'm kind of going to switch gears. I think in past webinars, we've talked a lot about things like sustainability, destination management, and certainly the S word has its place in this presentation. But I kind of wanted to break it down a little bit and really understand the importance of this destination ecosystem, because all stakeholders really do have a place at the table. And I think it's important that both the destinations will acknowledge that, but also operators themselves feel empowered. So here you can see the agenda for today's webinar, kind of breaking down what that ecosystem is, the key pillars, the role that data has to play, how you can leverage that data, whether you're a destination or you are a hotel, a tour operator, a restaurant, or an attraction. And then some kind of case studies and best steps that we're seeing in the industry. And I'll kind of finish off by the way forward, recommendations for future kind of ecosystems to thrive and to work together, kind of putting stewardship at the forefront. And lastly, kind of final up with some projects that we're working on at Data Appeal, one of which is called DAI Coach, that I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with. So let's kick it off. So I wanted to start by kind of breaking down the ecosystem. I think a lot of times we think, okay, yeah, the DMO, they're in charge, and certainly 100% they are the ones that do have that overall view of what's happening in the destination. But the ecosystem itself has a lot of moving parts. As Rachel mentioned, there's the local businesses, the governments, transportation, and that could be things ranging from your bus or metro services, the airport, taxi services, making sure everyone is working cohesively, but also the residents themselves, the visitors, things like experience providers that might come into the destination. I think we hear a lot about people complaining about day trippers or cruise ships, but I always ask, are you bringing them to the table? Are you having a constructive conversation with these people? And then some of those outside influencers like the press or the media, just because it doesn't help, I think, if, Travel and Leisure or TripAdvisor say one thing about your destination while you're actively trying to do something different. So everything must work together in a cohesive way. And why does this matter? So, of course, tourism I think all of us on the webinar, it's a really important industry that to us, that kind of at the heart of what we do, because it helps our local economies, it preserves culture, whether that's economic, environmental, cultural, but also will foster connections with people from around the world. But certainly when tourism isn't managed holistically and with that greater ecosystem, there are challenges that come into play. Things like over-tourism, we're seeing a lot of that right now, especially in Europe, reputation management, strain on natural resources, and of course, the stakeholder misalignment. So I really want to have operators feel like they can come to the table because they too play a very crucial role in sustaining a balanced ecosystem. But of course, they need tools to enable to do so. So I really want to kind of hone in on this last bullet point here that having an approach that's measurable and replicable is essential. Measurable, because I think everyone has heard the expression, you can't improve what you can't measure. I want to kind of take that up a notch to say you can't replicate what you can't measure, because it's one thing to do it great the first time, but being able to have KPIs that you can track over time and are replicable are important to help residents, businesses, visitors, and the environment as a whole. So wanted to kind of start out by saying, let's take stakeholder management out of our vocabulary. I really want to empower this mindset shift of stakeholder empowerment. You're not their manager. They don't report to you. And I think it's a nice reminder for destinations to kind of hear this, to understand it's true. They don't work for us. We need to work with them. We need to hear what they're saying, give them a place at the table. And then on the flip side, I want operators and stakeholders to feel empowered to make sure they are getting the tools that they need to meet their goals. So how can we make this kind of ecosystem thrive? I really want to kind of drive in on these 4 key pillars. The first is inclusivity, and that is kind of in the form of everyone and all stakeholders are engaged, whether that's the local operators, residents, and the destination as a whole. And of course, I'd be remiss not to include sustainability, because it must be a strategy that is long-term, looking at your resources, whether that's the natural ones, but also the environment as well. Also, connectivity. I think being able to bring together ways that you can easily share data, share trends that are happening in the destination, whether the challenges you're facing, ways you can improve, this all needs to be discussed at this kind of holistic level. And lastly, as I mentioned before, empowerment. So giving your operators the tools that they need so they can get data-driven insights that are measurable and replicable to help them improve. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones that your visitors are coming into touch with, and they make up essentially kind of that whole of the destination. So kind of what kind of tools and data are out there? Certainly destinations will have their own, whether that's flight data or spending, sentiment as well, things like accommodation bookings. It looks a little bit different for the local operators, for them being able to kind of have this transformation from reactive to proactive decision-making, different data like reputation management, so they can respond to reviews directly, track their sentiment, track how they are performing against their competitors or in time, is really essential, because it helps them understand where gaps exist and what their visitors are looking for in real time. But being also to compare against their competitors to see how they stack up, if there's things that they could be doing better or things that they know they excel at that they should be honing on for their promotional activities. And lastly, of course, having this kind of wider understanding of what's happening at the destination level. So things like visitor flows, local events, shifts in sentiment, if there are things happening in the destination that they should be aware of. Because what this essentially does is gives the operators and the destination as a whole being able to measure and repeat this success. So they can do things like improve the visitor experience by understanding their expectations and what they're looking for. And this might vary depending on the industry, the source market of visitors. For example, if you are a tour operator in the City of London, your German market might have different expectations than the Australian market. So being able to really dig into that data to see what are these pain points and the challenges that these visitors will face. But also things like the events. I think this has a really important part of the destination. It's a great thing to promote them, but understanding that impact events might have had. That could be conferences, expos, sporting events, both on the social side, but also the economic side. Also to help hotels with kind of demand-based strategies. So as you as a destination understanding kind of how the accommodation industry is performing in terms of occupancy or prices, but that's also extremely relevant for the hotels as well. But also things like restaurants or attractions to understand maybe if there's an influx in arrivals, how they can strategize better, or maybe for logistical purposes, if it makes sense to have more volunteers in a destination or improve maybe the security to have more maybe police officers on site if there are upcoming events where it makes sense to have kind of more security on ground. And also kind of on that marketing campaign side. So how can both you as a destination, but also the local operators kind of improve your marketing campaigns, whether that's OTAs, different review channels, or social media, because it's not helpful if a destination is promoting one thing and the businesses themselves are promoting something completely different. It has to have some synergy. I wanted to kind of quickly share a couple best practices that we're seeing in the industry where destinations are working with their local stakeholders and their local operators. Out of Big Bear, California, they're doing something really cool with their kind of partner channel. They will hold a monthly meeting with any hotels, restaurants, attraction, um, transportation operators that are keen to participate to understand the trends that are happening in their destination. They're sharing their data with them and also giving them courses on how to improve guest experience, how to better leverage AI technology, and making sure that their operators do feel empowered. Another one coming out of the Visit Piemonte in Italy, they're also hosting classes for specific campaigns. So whether that's like creating campaigns and marketing for family vacations and kind of these group packages, also ones on sustainability and tourism, so how local businesses can also kind of integrate sustainable strategies in their marketing. And then also ones for like specifically weddings. So the destination itself is working a lot on kind of this destination wedding marketing, but they also want to give the tools to the local operators there as well, so they know what to expect. Also out of the state where I'm from, Maine, they just introduced a brand new leadership academy that will kick off just a couple weeks ago. Again, where they're bringing together those operators involved to make sure that they're up to date on the latest trends in the state and some courses in terms of how to best interact with customer-facing industries. So they're asking kind of restaurant managers, hotel concierges to go through these classes to make sure everyone is using kind of similar standards and whether that might differ between where visitors are coming from or seasonality behaviors. And then the last one on a more data side is the region of Veneto in Italy, where they have created a public observatory using some of the top KPIs. So any operator in their industry or even a sub-destination, so some of the smaller cities or provinces can go in to see what is visitor experience across different industries, how that compares over time within the destination across different sub areas against competitors, and they're able in just a couple clicks to access this information that's updated daily, available for anyone, which is really great. I'll shift gears a little bit also to a case study that I think has been really relevant recently, which is over tourism. Hopefully there's some people on the call that can resonate with this, and you're taking steps to work on this. So the city of Sevilla in Spain had a big problem with overcrowding in the city center area, and that was unfortunately impacting the overall visitor and resident satisfaction. So their goal was to kind of reduce the pressure on these hot spots and really kind of shift and move people into some of the suburban areas and kind of boost the spending and the visitation in some of the untapped areas. So they've started kind of promoting these very popular areas in terms of sentiment, but low in terms of kind of footfall and traffic to diversify their itineraries and eventually improve the experience. So the destination themselves has worked on these kind of new gastro routes by working with the local restaurants and the local kind of transportation companies to say, how can we easily get people from the airport or from the city center into some of these lesser known areas by creating joint marketing campaigns that will focus on these restaurants and, kind of escape the crowds, get into some of these areas that don't have this pressure. And they've seen a decrease in the city center in their foot traffic, which is what they were hoping for, and an increase of their sentiment score. So this is a really nice use case of both the destination and the local operators working together for a common cause. So kind of before I wrap up, just some practical steps in terms of how operators can leverage some of this data and AI, just because it takes all for a successful destination management. The first is really leveraging these tools to measure and benchmark their progress. So as I said earlier, having replicable metrics is a must, just because it's important to be able to both measure and repeat these strategies, but using apples to apples metrics. And then also kind of monitor their reviews or their sentiment in real time to see how they can kind of respond directly to make sure that visitor experience and their expectations aren't just being met, but they're being exceeded. And then also identify these actionable strategies so they can improve the experience. But then also having these tools enables the stakeholders and the destination themselves to align and work together on these common goals. And lastly, by adopting kind of these sustainability practices so they can balance kind of seasonality patterns, the visitor impact, and the resources. So kind of what that future looks like, I want this mindset shift, that's a hard one for me today, to go from stakeholder management to stakeholder empowerment, because these operators and your local businesses are the stewards of your visitor experiences and the sustainability. Certainly destinations themselves cannot do it alone. And so having kind of data enables you to have these measurable and replicable progress to create destinations that are thriving and inclusive for all. There's different tools out there, certainly for destinations and for local operators. I'll give you a peek in a second, kind of what we're working on to do our part in the industry to really enable this destination stewardship. And then lastly, I think just hosting regular catch-up calls, meetings, workshops will really go a long way for collaboration efforts. So kind of stewardship itself really focuses on kind of these four different things. The first is to empower your communities because it's essential. Your destination, each one is unique. So being able to work together will foster this preservation of your uniqueness, whether that's your cultural heritage, environmental landscapes, your history, your food of your destination, but also kind of find this balance of growth and sustainability. Certainly, I'm not here to say that the numbers are not important. Certainly they are. The economic impact is essential, but being able to put that in the same conversation and at the same table with sustainability, because it's important and essential to protect your cultural assets and your natural assets for generations to come. The third is to create these meaningful experiences. So being able to kind of go deeper with your visitors so they feel like they have a connection with the destination because it's important for them to treat your destination with respect. I know Rachel and I had a webinar a few months ago with the city of Florence when they launched their new campaign, which is Enjoy, Respect, Firenze in Italy. And they're doing a lot of essentially visitor expectations where they have different workshops, posters in the city that residents know this is where you can throw away your trash. This is where the public bathrooms are. Just, it might sound like simple things, but being able to make sure that visitors are aware of the impact that they have on the destination. So they want to explore and they want to give back to the local economies and the local residents. And the last one is just really kind of build this resilience. So we've seen 5 years ago with the pandemic, it was quite a big shift, kind of what do we do now? How can we work together? So being able to have this kind of well-managed destination that wheel starts flowing naturally so you can overcome challenges, kind of these long-term ones like climate change, but also things like shifting trends to ensure this long-term viability for your destination. So kind of jumping from there, wanted to kind of quickly talk about what Data Appeal is doing. Perhaps a lot of you know we have a platform called DII Destinations, which is essentially a 360-degree overview of what's happening in your local territory. So it will look at things like the sentiment satisfaction of points of interest of the destination overall, different insights about forecasting. So what are bookings or searches happening for hotels or flights? the impact of upcoming events, sustainability. So really all elements, so how a destination can best prepare and improve their strategies. But we've introduced a new platform called DAI Coach, which is geared for those local operators, again, with this kind of empowerment and stewardship in mind. So from this platform, the operators, whether that's a hotel, a restaurant, an attraction, they're able to go in to respond to reviews in real time. So they can take actionable strategies to see how they're performing, what they're doing well, what they can improve, thanks to AI, just essentially kind of putting all that together to deliver these smart and actionable insights. It also enables them kind of a mini preview of what's happening in their destination so they can understand who's searching for their city, who's planning to come in, what our bookings look like, how our prices kind of shifting out between, now, a year from now. Are there certain peaks this summer that they maybe want to spend less money or less effort on promoting? Perhaps there are upcoming events that they want to leverage to do special packages for their businesses. So just really kind of piecing all of this together in a very simple way for the operators also to have a better understanding of what's happening in the destination overall. Also, as Rachel mentioned at the beginning of the call, we do have a video. Unfortunately, with technical issues, the sound's not working, so I recommend everyone check this out on YouTube. Hopefully, it will kind of succinctly wrap up what I've been saying over the last couple minutes about the platform itself and how destinations and operators can leverage this information to improve together. So with that being said, hopefully I'm on time. Would love to hear from everyone on the call to see if there's any questions, comments, good, bad, otherwise, even use cases that maybe you're doing as a destination. So how you can improve, or how things that you've seen that are working and best practices maybe that you want to share with everyone. So feel free to open that up.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much. I mean, lots of interesting new things as ever. As Hannah says, if you want to ask a question, do just type it into the Q&A and we'll be able to see it from there. Hannah, I just wanted to ask you a question which actually goes back to, I think it was your first slide where you had players in the ecosystem. And one of the things you had on there was social media and influencers. And I'm not sure that, obviously that's not a traditional player in the ecosystem, it's fairly new entrant. I'm not sure that all destinations and maybe operators have got to grips with how to accommodate that. It's kind of a new ecosystem in some ways, isn't it? So I'm thinking obviously social media and influencers, but also perhaps I could throw in there as well AI visits, where
Yeah.
people can visit before. I mean, what's your kind of impression on how well destinations are able to accommodate social media and influencers and AI
Yeah,
visits, etc.?
you raise a very good point, and one I didn't talk a lot about was AI. I think influencers, real ones, if you will, are a lot kind of easier to manage in a sense, because they typically will have a contract or some sort of relationship with that destination that they're following. I think the challenge is when they visit known spots in areas that maybe don't need the publicity or don't need the promotion. Certainly, Rome doesn't need an influencer saying, come to the Trevi Fountain. I mean, I think, would encourage people not to promote that just because it's something that is well known and they do have major problems in crowding. So I think it's aligning themselves with the right influencers. And that does, I think, take maybe some humble side coming from the destination to say, okay, maybe let's not focus on maybe what has been our biggest moneymaker, but have this mindset shift. I don't know why I can't get that out today, Rachel, into some of these areas that are, okay, maybe this is untapped. How can we promote this part of the city? And kind of working with these influencers to essentially be these pioneers and be these stewards to kind of pave the way for visitors. Because I think it all comes down to awareness. People don't know what they don't know. So certainly a visitor for the first time in Rome, yeah, they will want to see the Trevi Fountain, but if they know something 10 minutes away, 20 minutes away exists that resonates with them, they'll certainly go there. On the flip side, I think AI is where it becomes very challenging. I think a lot of destinations should be careful when it comes to kind of integrating these AI chatbots, because a lot of them they can't control, essentially, in the fact that the information that's being spit out could come from anywhere on the web, and they're not, on this time we're not able to really regulate that and see what that comes out. And at the same time, it's not, you might train it on their tone of voice, on their recommendations, but they're not essentially in control. They're not in the driver's seat of what visitors are seeing, what they're searching for, and those itineraries that, might seem perfect in essence, but who is that benefiting at the end of the day? Just because a lot of it is based on SEO and which businesses put the most money on Google or different websites like that.
Interesting. Thank you. And we've got a question from Isabel Brooks here, who's typed in the Q&A. She is interested in regenerative tourism, and we're thinking about the case studies that you spoke about, Florence. And she just wondered if there were any other examples of that she could look to.
Yeah, there's certainly a ton. I know, I'm just trying to think of some kind of in Europe. I know Ibiza is doing one right now, which is quite cool. So working a lot with the hotels themselves, to make sure that people aren't just coming on a day, to make sure when guests are there, they are kind of their money is being put into different local initiatives. But certainly, I know there's some others. I'm happy to share some more.
Mm.
Um,
Do you think
mhm.
Italy's leading the way then, Hannah? It seems that there's
Oh.
several examples from Italy.
That's where our company's based, so those are the ones I know best. Certainly, I think the Nordics have been at the forefront of this long before it was a conversation maybe in the Mediterranean. So I wouldn't say we're leading the way, but I think we're being very actionable about what's happening. I think Italy has a big responsibility, just because we do get so many visitors from so many different parts of the world. So they're able to really look at both long-term and short-term strategies, for short haul markets, long haul markets. But certainly, I think the Nordics are doing amazing, amazing things. And same goes for the Netherlands and some markets like that, just because it has been part of their vocabulary for long before it was part of ours, in terms of what it means to be sustainable, what it means to give back to the local economy. I know, in Austria they're doing something cool as well, where there's a lake that most people will go 10 minutes, take their photo, and leave. So now they're essentially doing a couple different things. One, making the parking lot more expensive, like where it's closest to, and a lot cheaper, which is like 2 kilometers away. So certainly a walkable distance for many. Also, accessibility is another topic. I'm not sure how they're managing that, maybe with travelers that do have problems with accessibility, but for kind of the traveler that if they can maybe park a little bit further away, cost less, then you can see more of the destination themselves. Then they're also offering maybe like buses to other parts of that destination, not just the lake itself where people are taking that one picture and walking away. So I think it really is success stories around the world. I think we just need to bring them to light more. And I kind of, as I said, you don't know what you don't know. So I always recommend destinations. If you are doing something that works, please, share it with anyone. There's a lot of people who want to listen, a lot of people who want to learn, because it might be something that could be replicable or maybe tweak it some to work for another destination.
Oh, that's interesting though what you say about about the Nordics though, Hannah, because I think sort of to be fair to some of the destinations that are struggling a lot more with overcrowding, the Nordics are kind of coming from a different base, though, aren't they? In that they have perhaps never
Yeah.
experienced thousands of people at the Trevi Fountain, and I think perhaps they've always been known as a sort of out in the nature, and they've been able to capitalize on that, which is fantastic. But I do think for certain city destinations, it can be a harder place to get to. Do you think?
Definitely, yeah, and I think those BC kind of cities are doing really great work. I think a big conversation here also comes with airlines and seasonality. So I think kind of leveraging your peak or your off peak or your shoulder seasons. So maybe try promoting less or not promoting at all your summertime, if that's kind of, most of your travelers come between May and August, but maybe work on getting them March, April, maybe do some campaigns for spring breakers or the Easter holidays or some of the holidays that will fall in that time, or try tapping into different markets that, hey, this is more affordable when you come 2 months earlier. The weather is still nice. So I think being able to really kind of tap into some of these kind of solutions, or if you will, alternatives, just because we can't keep doing what we're doing and hope for the different results. So I think being able to, and that will look different for every destination, but certainly I think the cities working with airports, maybe it makes sense kind of introducing some new flight routes in your off season, or find maybe different flight routes where kind of markets that people love to come in your destination, but maybe it makes sense for them to come at a different time. So offer cheaper options or more convenient options, or maybe packages with hotels or spas. I think there's a lot of opportunity there and a lot of things that the destinations and the operators can play with together.
Absolutely. I mean, just thinking about this, when you showed the public observatory example on there, and I'd just be interested to hear a little bit more about that. How do they set that up? Because it might be something that other destinations might want to do. I just wonder if you could tell us a bit more about that
Definitely, yeah.
public observatory
So
idea.
the region of Veneto, I think, have in Italy been at the forefront in terms of sharing their knowledge. They have, I think, about 5 different partners. That appeals one of them on that kind of sentiment visitor experience side, where they select the KPIs that are most relevant for them, have created this observatory. So they essentially have an API feed of their top data points that's refreshed kind of on a daily basis. So it's a link that's public for anyone. So it's all publicly available data. There's no kind of personal information or anything that they want to hide. So, I mean, they're like, please check this out, because certainly they don't have the resources to communicate to every local business, every sub area, every city, every, municipality. So it's something they have open, available for anyone. And people can play, click, and get different comparisons. Maybe it's over time, over competitors. Maybe it could be Venice versus Verona as kind of local examples. So they're able to see how the performance is going, but then also local operators as well. Maybe what is this hotel doing better than this hotel? How can I learn from that? Is it people really love the staff, or maybe their Wi-Fi connectivity is better? They're offering a concierge that will give discounts. So, I mean, it might be different elements, but it's essentially just being able to have one unique space that people can learn from each other.
Oh, okay, thank you. And actually, just thinking about the whole kind of overcrowding and tying that in with sentiment analysis, which of course I know you have quite a lot of experience at Data Appeal. I recently saw a very interesting chart from another one of our partners, ETC, the European Travel Commission, who do a lot of research. Now, they still use the old-fashioned survey method. So this was from origin
Yeah.
market surveys, but it was really interesting. They asked different origin markets, um, what is your reaction when a destination or something you want to visit is overcrowded and really
Mm.
busy? And it was so interesting. The Chinese market overwhelmingly said, well, we'd just go along anyway, despite the crowds. So they had this big high yellow bar on the chart. And then they had other origin markets like the US, Canada, Brazil, India. And some of them were a lot more willing to go. So one of the options was I'd try somewhere less crowded. Another one was I'd come back another day, or something like that. And different origin markets really, their attitudes were very different to what they would do and how much they cared. And I just wondered whether, operators and destinations can tap into this sentiment analysis by origin market, because it does seem to be important when you're thinking about who's most likely to be persuaded to go somewhere else.
Definitely, yeah. The easy answer is yes. And I'm a big proponent of send the right message to the right person at the right time, because there are better and worse visitors, and there are better and worse times based on the destination's goals. Certainly not everywhere in the world, but I think many people on the call will have peak seasons in areas that maybe, hey, don't come in July. We prefer you come in November. We prefer you come in January. So certainly, yes, the sentiment that we do, you're able to filter by the origin country, the language of the visitors. So, for example, if there are maybe bilingual countries, if you think of like Canada or Belgium, maybe, hey, maybe we want to even take that next step further, because we know maybe one has a higher perception of our destination and they do have a better experience. So it makes sense to go after them. And then also on the typology side, so does it make sense to maybe propose, make a campaign for couples? We know they have maybe more disposable income if they're just traveling in two, or for group travelers, if especially for them, you want them to come in your season that is less crowded, so they can also have a good experience as well. So certainly kind of looking at those different elements and then kind of what it is they like to do. So does it make sense to promote sports or culture? based on different seasonalities. So certainly museums tend to be more crowded when it's not as stifling hot outside. So maybe people might tend to go to the beach in those times, but maybe if you offer, hey, if you do find yourself in a city in the summer, check out a museum. Maybe don't go to the beach for the day. It's crowded. We're offering a special discount because they're maybe getting low visitors. So kind of combining those elements together, I think is really essential.
And actually, just kind of going on from there, and you spoke a little bit about events, and I know
Yeah.
Data Appeal have done various different pieces of analysis on the kind of social and economic impact of events. And I was actually, the reason this is in my mind is I just read your report about the UK events, the impact of UK events. The reason is I'm actually broadcasting from Wimbledon here, so we're quite interested to see about the tennis and things like that. But I mean, the question really is, do you think that locals are more tolerant of crowds when there is an event that they can also go to? And sort of on the flip side of that, do you think that visitors, again, it's more of an expectation that it will be busy? So do you think events maybe get a little bit of a pass because people are going, yes, well, I know it's a special event, obviously it's going to be busy. I mean, do you see that? Is that part of the...
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the excuse in a way, like, oh yes, we know, for example, if you're following the Champions League, yeah, we know Munich was crazy the other night, and maybe there was a ton of Italians there for the intergame, so they kind of got a pass in a way, just because, yeah, they're there, they're fans. I think it will also depend on the type of event, maybe expos, maybe a little bit less, if I could say. I think travel events tend to be, because I think a lot of residents might not know about them. Like I'm thinking off the top of my head, ITB in Berlin or WTM in London. I don't know how many people from London outside of the tourism industry are aware that this huge thing is happening. So if you're having to take the Elizabeth line during WTM and you're like, why is it so crowded? So I think the destination also might have a responsibility to educate residents in some way, just to say, these are happening, be mindful, maybe take alternative routes, but same thing to us as a visitor. Hey, this is a route that tends to get busy. It only takes 10 minutes more if you take this line instead of that one, something like that. So I think there are opportunities for events as well, but it will depend, I believe, on the category. So I think sports concerts might get more of a pass than some of the business related ones.
Yeah, that's just true. Yes. Listen, we're going to come in towards the end of our time now. So if you have got any last minute questions, do type them in. But I think we're probably almost done with the questions from the audience and my questions, Hannah. I do have to say I do rather enjoy having the opportunity to ask you some of my questions as well. So Hannah, let's come to you. Really for your closing thoughts on where the conversation might go next on the whole destination ecosystem and yeah, where else we can go.
Yeah, so I think for me, empowerment, stewardship, two words that have to be top of mind. Think more about how, certainly I think a lot of destinations right now, they are focusing on things like sustainability, having maybe more visitors coming in at the right moments. That can only happen when they're working together with the hotels and the tour operators and everyone. So I think destinations maybe taking a small hands-off approach, if I can, and operators feeling, okay, I have a spot at the table. I am part of this ecosystem. Here's how I can contribute. And I think once you kind of get everyone talking, really, conductive conversations will happen. So I'd say you have to kind of listen to everyone. And as the title of the webinar says, kind of the whole is greater than, or the sum of all parts is greater than the whole. So.
Fantastic. Okay. Well then, Hannah, I think that wraps up our discussion for the day. We very much look forward to seeing some of your colleagues from Data Appeal at Destinations Exchange. So if any of you out there listening are coming to Destinations Exchange, we look forward to having a couple of your representatives there. And otherwise, we will see you on the next webinar. And thank you so much for joining us, Hannah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Rachel. And thanks everyone for joining us this morning.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.